to the Guardsman's Bunk Warhammer 40k podcast. My name's Smiggy.
And I'm Son. And before we get started, remember to hit that like and subscribe button.
And remember, please follow your computer. The Omnissiah would love that. Alright, so let's get into today's podcast. So, today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a light-hearted episode today. We're going to be going over the Orks. And we're gonna skip over a lot of stuff so that we can keep this thing under an hour 30, hopefully, prayerfully, maybe. Yeah, I think so. The we're gonna we're gonna skip over a lot. So for those of you really diehard Orc fans, you're gonna go, oh, why didn't you talk about this Orc? Oh, why didn't you talk about that Orc? Well, I'm not an Orc fan, so it's not my bloody problem. Okay, so we're gonna go over the first we're going to go over some important things about the orcs first. So we all know what the orcs generally are, which is fucking retarded. But the orcs not only are retarded, they are like one of the only species where you like drag from fantasy into real world, and it's like equivalent. It's equivalent. It's all the same. So if for a quick summary, orcs were made by the old ones to fight the Necrons. If you don't know what the orcs, the old ones and the Necrons are, please go watch another video about the War in Heaven, because I'm not covering that today. That will take 6 fucking hours. And so, the orcs were made as a direct counter to the Necrons. If you're very confused, Necrons are the robots you usually see in Warhammer. I would like to point out to you, if you look at the orcs, you can kind of see their vibe is like what is like the type of faction that you're looking at, which is kind of like, how would you describe it? Like a horde army?
That sounds like a hype.
In a hive mind, a really retarded hive mind, a hive mind with Down syndrome. Oh, so sorry for that joke. Oh god.
I find that.
The orcs are one of the most popular species within the Warhammer universe. If you do not know what the orcs in the Warhammer universe represent, they are the happy faction of Warhammer. I guess you could consider them okay, question. Would you consider them the happiest faction in Warhammer?
See, so I mean, universe where everybody's sad because of war and they find joy in war, I would say they're pretty happy.
Okay, okay. This is where it gets interesting. In my opinion, I think the Emperor's Children are having just a little bit more fun, but that's besides the point. The orcs, the orcs are the final result of evolution, of where it horseshoe theoried itself from being so advanced they beat themselves stupid. The orcs are made as a direct counter to the Necrons. If you can't tell by looking at the image, the orcs are retarded. They are generally as how you imagine orcs are, but in a sci-fi universe. The orcs are very basic. That's one thing we need to keep out. There's no complexity to the orcs. There's no like 7 layer manifold. The thing, most of them are retarded. Most of them are like straight retarded. It's very difficult to not understand the orcs. They're basic and they're meant for war. One thing we should note about the orcs is that they weren't this bad a long time ago. They were these things called the Krorks. Now I couldn't find any official art of the Krorks, but if you can imagine, an average orc is about 10 feet tall, right? A Krork is about 16, which is pretty big, and they also were able to use power armor. However, 60 million years with a species of peace, with a species that only knows war, they kind of beat each other retarded over 60 million years, and it got smaller and stupider. And so, okay, this is where we could get into the meat and blood of it. So now you kind of understand what the orc vibes are, right? Which is kind of like a fantasy orc. Now, okay, I don't play that many video games. I definitely know fantasy RPGs, but if you can, I mean, do you kind of understand the vibe of the orcs, right? Do you have any like equivalent that you could kind of relate to our viewers, like what an orc would represent? Say, mm, like a average fantasy character. Like I don't personally delve into fantasy that much. My favorite faction is the Adeptus Mechanicus. So
Baka if he got a brain injury.
oh, actually no, that's kind of smart. Yeah, okay, okay. A Chewbacca if they got a brain injury. So think Chewbacca but green and less hairy. All right, let's go into the very basics of an orc. So let's burn time. The orcs are, like I said, the only happy species. The orcs are made for fighting, and now you're asking yourself, oh, but how can a species delve itself into fighting? Well, the orcs aren't exactly bound to any sense of logic. If okay, let's look at this next image. I want you to look at this image. I want you to kind of look at the big thing in the background. This big gigantic like block in the background. You can see it, right? You can see the big gigantic block in the background. Yes? That is called an orc gargant. You want to guess what a gargant is? It's like have you ever seen one of those medieval siege towers, like those really tall siege towers made of wood, and then there are people on the inside, and then they're poking their sticks out and trying to stab the thing? Yeah, that's that, but in metal and in orc form. It's quite stupid. Is quite stupid to say the least. Um, this and to be fair, a gargant shouldn't work. It is the equivalent of an orc mech boy. An orc mech boy is like their engineer. An orc mech boy kind of took a bunch of metal and then he like put it on a bunch of concrete pillars, and then he put a stone in the center of it, wrote vroom vroom, and then that somehow worked as an engine. He super glued a cog onto the side of that rock that says vroom vroom, and the thing starts moving at like Mach 5, and then he paints it red and it goes supersonic. This orc logic, and people call it the power of belief. We'll have many stories about the power of belief. We're kind of brushing over it. It's called the Great Green. We might actually have an entire episode about the Great Green. Complete a complete entire episode about the Great Green. But the Great Green is essentially a mycelial network. Ben well Cross knows what a mycelial network is, right? But for those of you who didn't really take biology in the second grade, uh, I'm sorry. The mycelial network is like the roots of a mushroom. They go deep and they go wide. They go quite big. The orcs have that, but it's psychic. So, okay, those of you who don't know the warp, quick summary: it's hell, but like have you ever been to a beach at low tide and like you stepped into the water at low tide and you could see your footprints in the sand as you walk? That is essentially what the warp is. Like as you step into the physical universe, it's a dimension under it that impresses and it has its own reflection on it. I think I'm getting that right. I think that is like the most that's the most yeah, that's the fast answer. If you want a more difficult answer, I'll be here for like a next week. I think we should make an entire episode about the warp. That would be a fun episode. Yeah, eventually. So the mycelial network. So the Great Green is the full consciousness of every single orc being. Now, orcs aren't just this green thing. If you notice, if you look at the bottom left, the guy who's absolutely smothering the ultramarine with his like ugly looking nose. Like they look like goblins. They look like goblins in in like Clash Royale. Like they look like goblins. Yeah, like those are called grots and snotlings. They're also orcs. They're like your average goblin. They're really smart, but they're really small and really scampery. So they're like super bullied by the orcs. They also have these things called squigs. We'll get into squigs later. There are like 47 different species of squigs. Essentially, every single species, every single member of the orc community is connected in this psychic hive mind, and it's called the Great Green. Uh, because the orc species is so big, the orcs reproduce via spores, like mushrooms. The joke is they're all vegan because they eat each other, and they're all mushrooms. So every orc is vegan. Um, they're all mushrooms, and like they reproduce via spores. So there are a lot of orcs almost all the time, right? The orcs are all connected by this great green. And because there's so many and they impress so hard into the warp, they can manifest a lot of really weird things, like uh, i.e. the Gargant with the Gargant in the background with its engine that is just a giant rock that writes vroom vroom on it. Yeah, that's kind of all there is. It really is that kind of all there is. So
So let me get this straight.
yeah,
They are super dumb. They are retards. They really don't know what's going on.
yeah,
But they are
yeah.
also super powerful.
Okay, okay. It's super powerful is not exactly the word that I would use. It's the greatest irony I think I've ever heard about the orcs is that if they got any smarter, they would be less powerful. Because because the orcs don't know that they're all innately psychic and they're all doing this bullshit. So if the orcs don't know that they're doing this bullshit, the
Alright.
they can't control it. And because they're so retarded, that means they do whatever they want. If they knew how to do it, they would manipulate it and then they would get into the exact same problems as every other race. Okay, before we move on, one thing we should note about the orcs is that I say that they're stupid. They have a command over like a basic language, but orcs aren't like philosophers. They aren't like developed minds. They wouldn't ask the questions that say you or me would ask, like religion. They have their own religion, but they don't ask, oh, is God real? Or oh, where does God come from? It's no. Does God give me big muscles so I can beat that guy into the ground? Yes, I'm gonna beat that guy into the ground. That makes sense, all right? So let's get into orc biology. Orcs are fungus. Orcs are mushrooms. Orcs are really big green mushrooms. That's why the joke is whenever you see in like a Dawn of War. Have you ever played Dawn of War? Okay, so Dawn of War is like a Warhammer strategy game. They put it on PC. Now there's Dawn of War 4, I think. The Lionel Johnson, is in Dawn of War 4, which is pretty OP if I say, because like that's a Primarch, but I don't know. The orcs are in every Dawn of War trailer, you'll see like an orc absolutely juicing some space marine, and then and on like the Facebook or like the Reddit or Instagram post, you always see some comment on there like, "Oh my god, a space marine just got crushed by a mushroom. What the fuck is this?" Like it's not nobody takes the orcs seriously because they're not meant to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Fun fact.
They're the fun faction, and um they can be reincarnated, like they but it's like a reincarnation like how orcs would reincarnate.
Yes.
So so okay, so an orc dies and his essence returns to the great green. Say he did something really powerful, like how you impress on the warp. He made a really big impression in the warp, and so his energy is recycled into the body of a new orc. Now that orc doesn't have that. Say, war boss Green Guts Grotsnick. Boss Green Guts Grotsnick gets his head chopped off by chapter master Hoobla Hoobla Hey from like some chapter of nowhere. right? Ultramarines, probably. Oh, the, the, the Green Grotznik, the war boss, dies, right? And this essence gets reabsorbed into the Great Green. And then the Great Green immediately spits him out into a new orc. And then that new orc has that personality of Green Grotznik, and then his name becomes Green Grotznik, but he has no memory of Green Grotznik. Because Green Grotznik does not no longer exist because orcs do not have good memory. So he is now Green Grotznik. So you could kill Green Grotznik in battle. And you know, Chapter Master Hoobla Hoobla Hey kills Green Grotznik in battle. The next day, Green Grotznik comes back as just a regular boy on the line, and he kills Chapter Master Hoobla Hoobla Hey, and still has no idea why he wanted to kill that guy. He just did. It's stupid. It's really fucking stupid. However, the reincarnation thing doesn't really happen because orcs aren't intrinsically very powerful psychically, nor do they have a lot of impact. Their powers in their numbers, their powers in their brute strength. Like I said, they're 10 foot tall and they're shaped like green bricks, right? And they're not smart, they're not strong, so they don't have a really big impression on the warp. So the reincarnation thing doesn't happen a lot. However, what is more likely to happen is that a pain boy, which is an orc with a pizza cutter as a mirror and a white lab coat, takes the decapitated orc, pulls him back into his tent, attaches his head again with duct tape and staples, and the orc comes back the next day with a new head, 6 inches taller, a lot of stitches, and very, 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 very fucking angry.
So, so these pain boys that you talk about
Yeah.
in a sense, surgeons or doctors or
Yeah, they're the medics. They're the medics. I wouldn't say surgeons. Surgeons is a very gratuitous word for uh for somebody who is quite literally the definition of trust me, bro. There is a meme. There is a meme. I will make it the thumbnail for today's video. There is a meme. There is a bloody meme of like a ranking of like high school graduate, which is like a admech, PhD, which is like a Necron technomancer, which is like they're like essentially magicians, but like they're like they have super advanced tech, and then the bottom is bro science, and it's like an orc in a white lab coat, like trying to it's like taking a like chainsaw to a guy's knee. Like it's trust me, bro. Yeah, they're not surgeons. They're trust me, bro. So
but it does work.
it works. It works. That's the difficult thing. There's so many, and it works. And the science is not difficult. The procedure takes all of 5 seconds. I told you, staples and duct tape, and they wake up 6 inches angrier, 6 inches taller, 500 pounds more heavier, a lot of scars, and very, very, very fucking angry. You can't kill orcs. You can't kill orcs. If you kill them, might they might just come back the next day. If not, they'll reincarnate. And even if you kill them, 10 more will take their place because they're constantly pumping out spores. And that's the thing. That's why orcs are so difficult to kill. There's a planet called Armageddon. Right? Beautiful, beautiful vacation place. A planet called Armageddon. That's beautiful. It's like calling a town called uh Diddy Prison, right? It's like a jail called Diddy Prison, and you're surprised why the rates of like criminals being violated in Diddy's prison are so high. Like it's just not gonna happen. The orcs have been fighting there for like centuries now. So there's a place called Armageddon, and like it's just infested because if okay, let's move on to the next image. I want you to look at that image I want you to absorb that image fully. That was the old 40k art of the orcs. This is the modern 40k art of the orcs. That is horrifying. That is a monstrous being. Okay, I want you to look at the guy's claw. I want you to look at the guy's claw. It looks like a toy. It looks like a
Yeah, it
toy.
does.
It looks like a toy. But the issue is this toy here has blood on it. That's probably their own because orcs bleed red as well. So like they could probably they this claw to in order to become an orc war boss, you have to beat everything into non-existence, right? And you notice how many there are. Like look at it. You notice you can't see the ground. You can't see the ground. Where there's ground, there's orcs. And they're all heavily armored, they're all very angry, and they're all screaming at you. Do you wonder why orcs are so powerful? There is an argument that this is like one of the species the Imperium cannot kill.
Yeah.
By their sheer numbers, they cannot kill. So, like I said, the orcs are generally quite tough. They can get reincarnated. They have the power of imagination. Their reproduction is exponential because one orc boy can produce a shit ton of spores. So they could go from like 5 orcs to like 8 billion in like 3 days. It's like ridiculous. They're also it's very specific to note. Orcs are not like regular human biology. They're like really muscular, but they're also very capable of living without a lot of very important components of their body. Like an orc can like I said, an orc can have his head chopped off and come back. They are fungus, so I think the argument was that um fungus usually lives a lot but it's not really killable. Like if you crush a mushroom, I mean it's still kinda alive. You're not really killed it. It's not like us. They don't have a very
Yeah.
solid central nervous system. They have like a spread out. It's kind of like an octopus. Like essentially, if you chop an orc's arm off, the arm can still move. So he could just put the arm back on, and the arm still works. If you notice in that photo, the red thing is called a squig, which is
Oh, that is
which is a super good segue into our next thing, which is squigs. Okay, so like I said, orcs aren't just orcs. Like, not like your fantasy orcs. Like, you have goblins as well, and you have squigs. Now, I don't know what the equivalent of a squig kind of is. Like,
yeah, there isn't really.
yeah, it's kind of, for those of you on the video who can see, for those of you who can't see, imagine a like you know those round squidgy balls that you give to kids where they like throw it and it like bounces everywhere and then it lands in their hands and then they scream, yell, and shout, right? It's like one of those squidgy things. You add a like very tiny lizard tail, two really chunky feet, like baby feet, like really chunky baby feet, and then like cut a hole in the middle of it, and that's his mouth, and then stick two holes in the top of it, that's his eyes. That's a squig. And it has a shit ton of sharp teeth. And it's really fucking ugly. The okay. The squig, like orcs, are a individual species. They're a subspecies of the orc genus. And so, there are 47 squigs. Are you ready? Alright, let's go. There is an attack squig. Kind of obvious. It's an attack squig. There is a bag squig. Kind of obvious. It's a bag. Okay, before we start, whenever I list the names, you will kind of get it off the rip. Stop me if you need to know what they are. Attack squig, bag squig, bomb squig, bile squig, bitey squig. Okay, this one I kind of need to like point out like a bitey squig. A bitey squig doesn't really. Most of these squigs don't have much lore. Like I know I think Bricky on the Adric podcast. I'll link them down below. They're very good podcast. He went over squigs. He listed them out, and he also did squig tier list, which I watched. Love that video. Um, but they don't really have that much lore as far as I could tell. So I'm just going to list them out and then you stop me whenever you need to know. Okay, there is an attack squig. There is a bag squig. There is a bomb squig. There is a bile squig. There is a bitey squig. Bitey squig. Boom squig. Bowel torrent squig. Burner squig. Buzzer squig. Buzzing squig. Chewing squig. Colossal squig. Eaten squig, spelled Eaten, squig, gas squig, gob squig, hair squig, hairy squig, herd squig, horn squig, juicy squig, also known as the Nicki Minaj squig, mimic squig, oily squig, Orchiosaurus, bait squig, parasite hunting squig, screech squig, spitey squig, exploding squig, spelled apostrophe SPLODIN apostrophe squig, squidgy, the squig, pigeon, squig hog, a squig hawk, a squig hog, a squig hog, squig hounds, also known as a growler squig, squigiosaurus, squig pipe, a squig bagpipe, also known as the Scottish squig, squig squig, shark squig, golf, stick squig, swab squig, syringe squig, targeting squig, vaccine squig, vampire squig, and word squig. Okay, don't ask me what a word squig is. I looked at the image, it's horrifying. I have no idea what it is. My favorite one is the juicy squig, because it's like the Nicki Minaj squig. It's
What is that?
it means exactly what you think it means. It's the Nicki Minaj squig. Okay. Okay. We will leave that at that. Alright, we have covered all the squigs, I think. Please add any more squigs if you know in the comments. But okay, number one, I was inspired to make this little bit because I saw the squig video. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't do enough research as Bricky or DK if from Adric, so I can't tell what these type of squigs are. Like I can't tell you what their specific function. Some of them I can't tell you what the specific function is. Most of them I can tell you what the specific function is. Uh, hair squig. It's hair. A hair squig is hair.
Yes. A squig that a wig that eats your head off.
Okay. Okay, wait. This is interesting. This is interesting. Okay, do you see this strange top knot on this guy's head, right?
Yes.
All orcs are born bald. That's the hair squig. So it bites onto the top of your head and it becomes hair. So in my head canon, there is a hair squig that bites onto your hair and gives you that Donald Trump wig of like that straight ramp, but it's like an orc, so it goes like 6 feet and he uses it to like whip across enemies. So like that's just my head canon lore.
But
Oh my god. Oh shit. Okay, so I want to go over some of the orc lore. Some of the orc lore. The orc lore, at least in the Warhammer 40k universe, is. How do I put this? I gave a 5-year-old access to a Word doc. So, okay, for those of you who don't know, me and Cross know each other very well. So me and Cross, we sometimes go to each other's houses. Cross knows that I have about a 1-year-old cousin who is not who is not the most sentient thing on the planet, and he he acts like he is not the most sentient thing on the planet. So, I want you to imagine most orcs like act like him, like a 1 year old. He has not gained sentience yet and therefore does not know how to act. One of my favorite stories is the Orc Rock story. So, I told you about the orc power of imagination. I haven't told you how stupid it gets. Now, most of these stories may or may not be canon. This is a story that I heard long ago, and I just choose to believe that it's real. Some people have told me it's false, but I choose to believe that it's real. An orc rock is a spaceship that is exactly how it is spelled, an ROK. It is a rock hollowed out and filled with orcs. And they attach big nuclear rockets to the back of it, and then they fire it in a general direction. And for some reason, because they paint it red, it goes faster than warp travel. I don't get it. I don't get it, but it's fine. It's fine. Um, See, painted red. So these things are called speed creeps. They're called speed creeps. They're painted red, right? So, oh, I actually no. You know what? We're on this photo. We should do this story. Two orcs and one squig have downed an entire Imperial Titan before. They took a buggy. They were a bunch of speed freaks. They were from the Evil Sons orc chap. They're essentially speed freaks, and they're a bunch of mechanics. They took a thing and then had the buggy had like a warp drive, I think it was, and then like the orc. This was a canon story in a book. The orc no clipped into the middle of the air and flew directly into the cockpit of the Imperator class Titan and proceeded to cut the head off the Imperator class Titan. Two orc boys and one squig downed a god machine. That pisses me off to no end. It's so funny. There is a recent trailer of Dawn of War of like this orc chasing a bunch of Imperials, and the one orc, and it's like Orc War Boss and his like second in command. The Orc War Boss goes, the Orc second in command goes, Orc Boss, they're getting away, and then the Orc War Boss goes, that's what you're talking about, you get crash faster, and he hits the crash faster button, which is a big red button on the console, and then the thing crashes into the planet and makes like a nuclear-sized explosion, and out of the broken wreck of the rock comes pouring billions of orcs. Do you see what I mean by it's stupid?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get into more stories later. Let's talk about some orc history. We're getting a bit on time. So, I want you to notice the two figures in the background. There. One is Gork and one is Mork. Very distinct, very separate. One is brutally cunning, one is cunningly brutal, and that is all we know about Gork and Mork. That is about the extent. Gork and Mork have apparently beaten the shit out of the Emperor before, which is the funniest image to me, because if you imagine the God Emperor of mankind getting whacked in the head by a bunch of orcs, you kind of get the vibe. Okay. So, like we said, the orc race. One thing we should note is that the old ones didn't create the orcs. The orcs were evolved by the old ones, and the old ones evolved them into like a super species. They had their own gods, and then the gods became like really powerful. Um, After about 60 million years, they evolved from the cloaks to the orcs because they beat themselves really stupid, and then they kind of disappeared from the lore. Then they came back in like the 30th millennium and threatened humanity in like a war. Like this is the time during the Primarchs. So when the Primarchs and the Emperor were around, fun fact: an orc almost killed the Emperor, but Horus stepped in. That's why he's War Master, because Horus defeated all the orcs, which is why they're not that big of a problem. So it is like it was kind of like the people think that a bunch of crooks started a wa. A wa is spelled WAAAAAAAAAAAAGGGGGGGH. Screamed at the top of your lungs. It's the orc name for war. That's what wa is, right? Every time you hear an orc say wa. By the way, I heard a story. I listened to a song called For the Wa, and it's by like Cole McGuinness, and it's about the orcs. And he has a very he's from I think he's from I can't remember. He's Irish. He's Irish. But for some reason, the orcs are given this very hooligan British accent, right? They're the kind of people you would see at a do you kind of see at an English football game? Yeah, you know that yeah, yeah, it's let's pretend, let's pretend, let's pretend we scored a goal. Yeah, like that type of energy. Wow, yeah, that type of energy. For some reason now I can't unhear orcs in an Irish accent. Like think about it. I don't have I don't have the orc uh Gazgul speech. Hold on. All right, I want you to hear the whole thing and like tell me you can't hear it in the Irish accent. Hold on. Let's change. Boots in my. Ah, okay. I can't find it, but I have a specific phrase. You want to try? You okay? Okay. Do you want to try reading a Gazgul speech?
I think you got this. Do it for the cloud.
Okay, okay, okay. So in the original one is I Warboss Gazgul make Uruk's Rocker. I speak with the word of the gods. Whole worlds burn my boot print. Right? Like that's how they usually sound. It's like a booming British accent. Right? I want you to imagine there's a speech. He goes, Way's gonna war, right? Imagine a bunch of. I hate saying this because, like, the stereotype of Irish people. And my mom studied in Edinburgh. My mom spent a lot of time in Edinburgh, so she'll take offense to this. Um, Imagine a bunch of Irish sounding orcs running at you. Say, We's gonna war, lads! We's gonna war! For the wall, lads! For the wall! I can't unhear the orcs in the Irish accent. Oh god, we got off topic so hard. Um,
Like you think there'll be like a bunch of like leprechauns running at you, but
no,
just like
the best part,
buildings.
they're green.
Yeah,
They're green, and they have grots which are small. Oh shit! So they might honestly be Irish. Or like you hear like imagine. Okay, so there's this clan called the Goths. We'll get into them later. They're black and white because they're trying to represent Horus. Because Horus was like armor was black and white. So imagine you hear them coming over the hill, and you hear is come out, ye black and towns, come out and fight me like a mouse. Oh shit, it's so fucking stupid. Okay. Well, like, okay, I know that I said my mom is Scottish and she'll take offense to that. I'm saying, like, if the orcs were in, like, a Scottish and Irish accent, that would be kind of really fucking stupid, which is absolutely fucking hilarious. Let's go back to the topic before I start making more Irish fans, like, leave the podcast. Okay, the orcs, the orcs separated themselves into clans. Like the orcs aren't very smart, so they kind of have a herd behavior, like a herd mentality, kind of. Do you want to try naming the individual orc clans? Really? Okay. Let's see. Oh, by the way, this is Gazgul. This is Gazgul. We'll get into him later. The big motherfucker right here. That's Gazgul Magorok. If you notice, that's a space marine. He's standing closer to the camera. This guy's far away. He's like 20 feet tall now. Like this guy's huge. He's like this. He's like the size of a three-story building. All right. Uh, let's go. Oh yeah, this is Gazgul. This makes him look really cool. This is like a really sick piece of art. I love this one. All right, we'll get into some of these stories later. So let's go. Let's go. So this is called the Goth clan. They're the orkiest orcs. They focus mainly on very brutal close quarter melee combat, and they're often the biggest orcs and the meanest orcs because of it. Gazgul is a Goth. Gazgul is a Goth clan. So they paint the armor black and white, interestingly enough, because they were the ones who fought Horus, Lupercal, and the Luna Wolves, and the Luna Wolves, by the way, are like before the heresy, were some of the most goaded like space marines on the planet. It is said that they would never get into a fight they know they would lose. So they apparently, according to that phrase, have never lost. Almost never lost. And so the orcs, taking that, oh, by the way, we should talk about orc color theory. We'll kind of talk about orc color theory in there. Orc black and white in orc color theory kind of means you are stronger and tougher. So the Goths, being black and white, are stronger and tougher. Right. Uh, the bad moons. The bad moons are wealthy merchants who hoard riches, peace, spelled P-E-S, to buy the biggest and flashiest gear. Usually they're wearing a lot of gold, they're wearing a lot of jewelry and stuff like that, and the orcs they're usually quite rich. Uh, they're usually orcs are usually they barter on teeth, and the bad moons usually the bad moons have an unusually unnaturally fast rate of growing teeth. So they're usually a lot of the merchants because kind of how the orcs get their money is like they punch each other in the face and a tooth flies out, and then that's gold, right? That's like $500 right there. This is the evil sons. The evil sons are red. They're also very fast. They're obsessed with speed, noise, and fast vehicles like trucks, bikes, and flyers. I'm kind of rushing through these. This is a orc blood axe. So they're kind of like commando orcs, which is kind of scary because they can do like camouflage and stuff like that. But their camouflage is like painting themselves purple. Because have you ever seen a purple orc?
No.
Exactly.
I see what you did there.
Exactly. These are the snake bites. Snake bites are on the top. It's these guys right here. So they're like traditionalist orcs. They don't one example of snake bite is this guy right here. If you notice, he doesn't have a chain axe or anything, and he has like tyrannid stuff on it. He is if they're traditionalist orcs. They don't really like technology and all that much, right? Um, let's Death Skull. So very famous Death Skull is Mad Doc Grotsnick. Not a great guy. There are blue skin looters and scavengers. They're known for stealing and salvaging. However, they're also incredibly lucky because they paint themselves blue. Valid, right? And this is an orc freebooter, spelled Freeboota. If you look at him, what kind of vibe do you get from him? He's a pirate. They're pirate orcs, which is kind of cool, right? There are also other clans like Iron Claw, Red Spiders, White Spiders, and Beast Snagga Boys. Beast Snagga Boys. You can kind of get what the Beast Snagga Boys are all about. Now we get into my favorite part. We're talking about War of the Beast and Gas. We'll go over this very quickly. War of the Beast is essentially a bunch of really shit novels about the orcs fighting the humans after the Primarchs kind of disappeared after the Horus Heresy. My favorite quote that came out of it, thank God, to DK Diamantes from Adeptus Ridiculous, is she wore on my beast till I slaughter. Please ingrain that into your memory. She wore on my beast till I slaughter. And we're moving on. On a planet. After this, there was a planet. On a planet called Ork. There was a Goth. He was called Gas. He got his head blown out by a mechanical trap because he willingly ran into the mechanical trap, thinking he could beat the mechanical trap. He did not beat the mechanical trap and got his head blown out by a bolter shell. A doc called the Mad Doc Grotznick got him for a bunch of shit at a shiny new chopper. So he traded Gaz, and then essentially he did work, and then he fixed Gaz. If you notice, Gaz has a metal plate in the side of his head. This right here, that's the metal plate. So essentially he replaced the part of his head. However, he gave him a very non-consensual extra surgery to add a new bionic knee. But like I said, the Orc docs use chainsaws. So he chopped off the whole leg, and Gaz almost died due to catastrophic bleeding. On the table, on the operating table, Gaz saw Gork and Mork, and this grotling, this snotling, this something that looks like this little fucker right here, he came over to Gaz and poked him in the shoulder. Gaz came to life and proceeded to beat the shit out of everybody in the room, screaming he was the prophet of Gork and Mork. And now, he woke up in a Death Skulls camp. He was a goth, and there's a Death Skull. Orcs are very prone to fighting each other. The Death Skulls are the lucky ones. The blue ones, right? And so the blue, well, I'll call them the Death Skull. The Death Skull boss essentially said, "Oi, what the fuck is this?" Right? There's a goth in my camp, and so he shot at him with all 10 of his gun barrels and all 500 bullets, and he missed. These are the lucky ones, and he missed. And Gaz proceeded to kill him and beat him so bad, the Death Skull started cheering for Gaz. Gaz is now the war boss. If you don't know who Gaz is, his name is Gaz Gul Mag Uruk Thraka, which kind of translates to Big Iron Metal Head War Boss. That is Gaz. And so Gaz has done a lot of shit. He got himself involved in the first war of Armageddon, the second war of Armageddon, the fourth war for Armageddon, however many fucking wars for Armageddon there's gonna be. Because it's a planet called Armageddon. Why the fuck do we not leave that place? I don't know. He got himself involved in the Great Octarius War, which is when essentially an Inquisitor took the Tyranids and the Orcs. Remember, the Tyranids evolved to meet any challenge. The Orcs grow bigger when they fight any challenge. He took the Orcs and the Tyranids and said, "Now kiss." And then we get this. We get this abomination. And for like the longest time in lore, we were hoping that like that war would last for eternity. No, there's a winner of that war. The Tyranids won. The Nids won. And they evolved something. They evolved a new bioform. Which is fucked. And so, now we're kind of getting to the end, so I should quickly talk over this story. Gaz likes this commissar called Commissar Yarick, and the only reason is because Yarick is such a fucking badass that Gazgul is like, I like this Humi, I want to keep him. He's my mortal enemy for life. The Orcs grow by fighting, right? So by keeping a mortal enemy, you have somebody to fight. This comic is my favorite part because Yarick was essentially killed by Angron. And so, like, you look at that comic. You look at your comic, right? It's like, you lived your entire life for battle. Are you really going to die for some mortal? Then you hear what's it? Doomslayer music. Dun 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 dun. And it's the bottom comic with bottom panel, which is this Gazgo death staring into the camera. So warnies, right? Like he's so hyped. He's so ready to go. This is like the energy. This is like orc energy. This is orc energy. This is orc energy. This is him. Gaz essentially saw that Yarick died, and he is now throwing hands. Like, this is my favorite comic. This is my favorite comic. What the zog is this? No way! I'm gonna find the kid who did this. Nothing is saving Daimi Killer for Baylai. Ooh, you like Sebastian Yarick. If you notice, the Imperial City behind him is on fire, probably because of gas. And so now there is a bunch of fucking orcs with Angron diving headfirst into the warp. And the warp doesn't work like warp travel works for everybody else. My favorite part of this image, if you notice, besides Angron's fucking ginormous biceps on his wings, he's headbutting gas. He's headbutting gas. You notice he's not whacking it, he's headbutting gas. Which is one of my favorite stories, by the way. So gas, like I was saying, talking about the warp. Warp doesn't work for orcs the same way it works for everybody else. The warp, like, bends to the orc's will. There is one time where, like, Gaz essentially had to get off a planet, and so conveniently he found a Space Hulk. He got onto the Space Hulk, but there was a warp rift. So the orcs were fine with it, and they were kind of fighting the demons, because they loved fighting demons. There's a orc in the warp called Tuska Demon Killer. You can kind of get what his whole vibe is. He's a demon killer. The orcs essentially beat the shit out of the demons, and they got their way to the warp rift, and they shot at the warp rift, which is a tear into immaterial space, and it did nothing. They hacked at the warp rift, it did nothing. Gazgul headbutted the warp rift, and the warp rift closed. With a pop, a green pop, and the warp rift closed. It's like that question, 10, like, you know that 10 billion lions versus the sun? Like, 10 billion orcs, and I throw them at, like, the Cicatrix Maledictum. The terror across the galaxy. Where we just take all the orcs and we throw them at the Cicatrix Maledictum and see what sticks. Oh, so dumb. But yeah, that's kind of the orcs, man. There's not much to talk about. I mean, we could talk about some of their extra lore. I mean, do you know who these guys are? The Humies at the bottom? Okay, so they're called the Armageddon Steel Legion. They're like a bunch of Imperial Guards specifically built to fight orcs. And it's like, they're fighting orcs, clearly. And they do really well. By the way, look at that commissar up there. That thing is like 3 stories high. He's just standing there, dude. He's built different. This is why I love humanity, man. They're calmly reloading and shooting into what is essentially a nightmare horde from hell.
Yeah.
Oh, I never noticed this. Look at the background. They have an orc Terminator.
Oh, nice.
They have an orc Terminator.
What is an orc Terminator?
I don't know. I just noticed it. So yeah, that's about it. The orcs' purpose in lore is kind of just the fun guys, I guess.
Yeah.
That's about it. So, well, I mean, do you have any questions?
No, not really.
Yeah. All right then. So that does it for today's podcast.
Hi, this is Mickey. After the episode.
thank you for watching the episode. The audio ending got a bit corrupted, so we'll kind of do it here. We thank you for watching. It means a lot to us, me and I think Cross as well, kind of appreciates that we're able to rant and talk a little bit more about the orcs and a little bit about the kind of stupid stuff in the podcast. We're able to kind of talk about it. It's very interesting that we're able to do this now, especially in the environment that we're in. And we're especially grateful to all the people who are willing to watch this stuff. Now, we have a very special announcement. Let me find the announcement. Okay. So, our announcement is that if this channel gets 50 subscribers, we will move on to the Warhammer poster boys. We'll start talking about the Space Marines. We'll be talking about the Space Marine Legions, and if we get it to about 1,000 subscribers, we will do a long deep dive into any event you guys want. After 1,000 subscribers, we are possibly looking at a 5,000 subscriber window. If we get 5,000 subscribers, Cross will go into a deep dive of any anime verse that he wishes to talk about, and I have to sit down and listen to him. I am reputable for my hatred of anime, so excuse me. I don't know how I'm gonna react to that episode, but that's gonna be fun. And if we get to 10,000 subscribers, we will start doing the individual Space Marine chapters. So that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching, and we's gonna wa. She wore on my beast till I slaughter. Wait, hold on.